Right. One of the things that were announced by Archbishop Thabo Makgoba was that the Angelus bells will be rung at noon. And let's go to our senior reporter, Ayesha Ismail, who is at the Cathedral in Cape Town. Ayesha, just tell us very quickly what's going on there right now.
So, Maseko, as we speak, the bells are being rung, and I've just noticed that the verger of the Anglican Church is just taking a break. And as you can see, I think we're focusing on him right now, and they're going to start ringing the bells again. It will be rung for 10 minutes, and starting today, it will be rung from 12 o'clock from today, every day up until Friday. So.
And Ayesha, I don't know if you can perhaps just tell us the importance of the bell ringing every day at noon.
Well, it has a biblical significance, and I think we heard the Archbishop Makgoba explaining the significance of this and saying that it dates back to biblical days. And of course, because of the stature of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, it is only fitting that they ring the bells, from today at 12 o'clock up until Friday. Now, we also heard that the Archbishop's body will lie in state here at the Cathedral. And what's also important to note is that the Archbishop his ashes will be interred here at the Cathedral. This will be his resting place. But Maseko, I just want to take a break so that we can allow our listeners and our viewers to hear the bells being rung. It's not every day that we get to hear and to see this.
All right, Ayesha, and as they prepare for the bells to keep ringing, just tell us a bit more about some of the announcements that were made by the Archbishop Thabo Makgoba and other church leaders today in terms of memorial services that will be held for the Arch.
That is correct, Maseko. Archbishop Thabo Makgoba did also say that churches across the country will be holding their own memorial services throughout the week. What we also do know that there will be an interfaith service held in the city of Cape Town on the Grand Parade outside of the City Hall, and that will start at 6 p.m. Now, we also know that Archbishop Desmond Tutu will lie in state from Friday night into Saturday, and that the funeral service will be conducted from St. George's Cathedral. But what Archbishop Thabo also said, that all COVID-19 protocols will be observed. Remember, only 100 people will be allowed to attend this funeral, whereas the cathedral has the capacity to take 500 people. But of course, all COVID-19 protocols will have to be observed. So what they're appealing is for people to attend church services in their particular areas and not to get onto buses to come to St. George's Cathedral. But with the lying in state process, they will allow people in Cape Town, residents as well as visitors, to line up in front of the cathedral and then be ushered into the cathedral to come and pay their last respects to the Archbishop. And this will take place on Friday. And just to reiterate, the funeral service, which will be an Anglican funeral service, will start at 10 o'clock on Saturday.
All right, I think, Ayesha, we should probably give the viewers some of the sound of those bells. As you said earlier, it's not every day we hear this, so maybe let's just give it a moment once again. Archbishop Thabo Makgoba since yesterday, and other people who've been paying their respect to the Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu and his family. We heard from one of the people close to the family, in fact, that, his wife, Mama Leah, was saying that the Arch knew that he's leaving, and he was saying that he's okay with it, and that gives her some sort of comfort. Tell us what other people have been saying to you about the Archbishop and his legacy.
There's a common thread in what people are saying, whether they are famous people, whether they are just ordinary people. They are all talking about the love that the Archbishop had for all, the fact that he was a man who stood for justice, who was against all forms of oppression, whether it was racial oppression, economic oppression, whether it was gender oppression. The Archbishop was the person who would speak out against all forms of oppression, even whether it was in South Africa or whether it was outside of South Africa. When something was happening that went against humanity, you can be guaranteed that Archbishop Desmond Tutu would speak out against it. But just while we're also listening, Maseko, to the bells being rung, the intention is for people to pause for 10 minutes when they hear the bells being rung, for them to pause and to reflect on the life of the Archbishop, and also to reflect on who they are, and to continue the legacy of the Archbishop. And of course that is for peace, love and justice for all.
And of course, Ayesha, hearing you talking about, I can see it is around 12:10, and they did say 10 minutes, so I'm assuming that that would be the end of it for today. But Ayesha, in the meantime, also hearing you talk about how he, went and he was an activist against many forms of oppression. I think, the importance that he played an important role in showing how important the church is for fighting for the rights of, for instance, the LGBTQI plus community, after his daughter had to give up her priestship, Mpodudu, because of her same-sex marriage. He came out, knowing that, the church it could reject him for, saying that he stands up for the rights of of the LGBTQI plus community.
That is correct, Maseko, and I spoke to some of our colleagues yesterday where I said to them, I encountered some homeless LGBTQIA plus people outside the cathedral, and they were saying to me that they heard about the Archbishop's death, that they were heartbroken because he was a man that loved them very dearly. And when they spoke to me, I could see that they were visibly moved because, one, they were homeless, and secondly, as we know, members of the queer community are still being marginalized and oppressed, despite the fact that we have, one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. We still find the LGBTQIA plus community being marginalized and being oppressed. But again, the Archbishop was very outspoken about this, and he supported them and he loved them. He was a man of God and a man of truth with immense compassion for all.
And of course, Ayesha, we're hearing for instance, our colleague Heidi Jokos spoke to former President Thabo Mbeki last night. And of course, we all remember what happened in September of 2008 when he was toppled off the seat as president, and how the Archbishop came out to warn the ANC about 3 years later because it started to be embroiled in, corruption, etc. And, he wasn't a man who minced his words. He was very firm with whatever he believed in.
Absolutely not. He never minced his words. He was very outspoken, and specifically, as I said, during the bleak days of apartheid, he spoke out. He helped us and was at the forefront of our transition into a democratic South Africa. And once we obtained our democracy and our freedom, he didn't leave it there. He continued keeping an eye on those in power and he kept on holding them accountable for their actions, so much so that he spoke out about corruption in government. He spoke out about their lavish lifestyles, and also just to indicate what a simple and humble person the Archbishop was. He stipulated that he did not want a lavish funeral. He wanted to be buried in a simple pine casket with very little pomp and ceremony. But what we do know, and what is guaranteed, that he will be having a good send-off here at the Anglican Church at St. George's Cathedral, and it will be a full-on requiem service which will take place, or it will start at 10 o'clock on Saturday, and we're just hoping, or rather we're just waiting to find out whether the church will be able to get permission to allow more people to attend the funeral service of Archbishop Desmond Tutu.
All right, Ayesha Ismail, senior reporter. Let's leave it there for now. Of course, as you heard from Ayesha, at noon every day those bells will be rung to remember the Archbishop.